Okay folks, buckle up. Today on the Mysteria Archive, we're exploring the secret timekeepers and exactly who's been controlling and maybe rewriting our history. Get ready for a wild ride. What if our past isn't just forgotten, but forged? What if time itself has editors, people, institutions, maybe even something stranger? Quietly bending the timeline, snipping threads, stitching in false memories, and burying truths so deep we've forgotten they ever existed. We're told history is a record, written in stone, preserved in books. But what if it's more like a screenplay? Drafted, redrafted, sanitized, rewritten by popes, presidents, generals, and sometimes people you've never heard of. Because here's the thing, when you control the past, you control the present. And if you can shape the now, you can script the future. Governments, secret societies, shadow programs, they're not just protecting secrets, they're curating time. So today, we're going to follow the trail of the secret timekeepers, those who may be rewriting our reality, one carefully erased chapter at a time. Okay, I know, sounds like the start of a Nick Cage movie, right? Secret timelines, forbidden archives, maybe a guy in a robe holding an hourglass and whispering in Latin. But jokes aside, this idea that history isn't just recorded but manipulated has been around for centuries. From kings torching libraries to algorithms filtering what we see today, time's been in the hands of the highest bidder. So whether you're here for the fringe, the facts, or just the fantastic, buckle up. Because even if you don't buy into time machines or Vatican black boxes, you might walk away questioning why we remember what we do. And that's where the real story begins. History as a weapon. Let's start with something simple, yet quietly explosive. History isn't neutral, it never was. What we call history is really a story assembled from fragments, filtered through bias, and often weaponized by those in power. As the saying goes, history is written by the victors. But sometimes it's not just written, it's edited, redacted, even deleted. Empires have risen and fallen by rewriting their pasts. Religions spread through carefully curated origin stories. Even entire populations have had their cultures suppressed and their histories replaced with alarming efficiency. Think about how your identity is shaped by what you've been told about your nation, your ancestors, your beliefs. Now imagine if that foundation was built on sand. It's not always about hiding ancient alien temples under the Sphinx, but hey, we will get to that. Sometimes it's about controlling the narrative just enough so no one notices what's missing. From the burning of the Library of Alexandria to modern regimes banning books, the past has always been treated as a kind of weapon. A weapon that reshapes who we are now. And if you can rewrite what people believe about yesterday, you can shape how they act today, what they'll fight for, what they'll forget, what they'll never question. So, who's holding the pen? Because whether it's through religion, education, or entertainment, there are people, perhaps whole organizations, who see history not as a record, but as a tool. And those tools, they are sharp and silent. All right, let's be honest. If history were a group project, half the people involved ghosted halfway through, and the other half made sure their name was really big on the final presentation. It's not that all history is fake, it's that a lot of it is selective. And let's be real, if you had the chance to make yourself look better in the official record, wouldn't you tweak a few footnotes? No. Add on centuries of kings, conquerors, and corporations doing exactly that, and suddenly our timeline's looking a bit photoshopped. So, no, this isn't about throwing out every textbook. It's about asking who edited them and why. Next up, we head to the 4th century, where the first major revision was signed off by an emperor. The Council of Nicaea, the first edit. In 325 CE, a group of bishops gathered in the ancient city of Nicaea under the order of Emperor Constantine. Their task? Not just to unify Christianity, but to define it. This was no casual book club. The First Council of Nicaea was a political and theological summit that would shape Western civilization for centuries. Doctrines were standardized, gospels were selected, and most importantly, others were discarded. Books like the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Mary excluded, declared heretical, vanished from the official timeline. What emerged from Nicaea wasn't just a religion, it was a canon, a single version of spiritual truth, stamped and sealed by imperial authority. But here's where it gets interesting. The church didn't lose the other texts. In many cases, they preserved them privately, hidden in monasteries, buried in caves, or locked away in places like the Vatican Archives. Why hide them if they meant nothing? Some historians argue these alternate gospels challenge the growing orthodoxy, suggesting, for example, a more human Jesus, or teachings that didn't require a centralized church. Others believe these texts revealed mysteries about time, cycles, or even reincarnation that were deemed too destabilizing. By canonizing some and rejecting others, the council wasn't just choosing theology, it was shaping history itself, deciding what would be remembered and what would be erased. It was the first major timeline edit, endorsed by an empire, enforced by faith. And once you realize that religious history was edited, you start wondering what else got the red pen treatment. Okay, so imagine your favorite movie. Now picture the studio deleting half the scenes, rewriting the ending, and banning anyone from even mentioning the director's cut. That's basically the Council of Nicaea. It's like a historical patch update, but one where the devs burned the old code. Now, was this done for political unity? Well, probably, but you have to admit, the idea that entire gospels were tossed out like last week's scrolls is a little bit suspicious. And if some of those deleted scenes had a different version of spiritual reality, or even time, yeah, now we're in the secret timekeeper territory. Now, let's keep digging, because next we're heading to the most secure filing cabinet in the world. The Chronovisor and the Vatican Secret Archives. Buried deep beneath Vatican City, in climate-controlled vaults accessible only to a select few, lies one of the most secret libraries on Earth, the Vatican Secret Archives. But among the rumours of forbidden books and lost histories, one legend stands out, stranger than most. It's called the Chronovisor. According to a 2002 book by Father Francois Brunet, a Benedictine priest, the Chronovisor was a device constructed in the 1950s by Father Pellegrino Ernetti, an Italian scientist and monk. Allegedly, it allowed the user to view past events, not travel, just observe, like tuning into a cosmic Netflix with history as your playlist. Ernetti claimed to have witnessed scenes from ancient Rome, the crucifixion of Jesus, and even performances of lost Greek tragedies, all recorded by the Chronovisor's strange antenna array, supposedly built with the help from a scientist who also worked on early nuclear tech. Of course, no photos of the machine survive, and the Vatican completely silent. But the story won't go away. It's tied to a broader idea that some claim the Church doesn't just guard knowledge, but carefully curates access to it. The Vatican Secret Archives are estimated to hold over 50 miles of shelving, filled with ancient manuscripts, apocalyptic prophecies, and possibly forgotten sciences. Why keep it hidden? Some say to protect the faithful, others suggest to preserve power. If the Church really had a device that could witness the past, it wouldn't just be a theological game changer, it would make them literal keepers of time. Was the Chronovisor real, or was it spiritual allegory turned science fiction? Either way, it adds one more name to our list of potential timekeepers and raises a burning question. What else is in those archives? So, the Vatican might have had a 1950s time machine powered by holy vibes and spare radio parts. Look, I built IKEA furniture that looks more dangerous than this alleged Chronovisor. But still, there's something really fascinating about this idea. Even if the device didn't exist, the curiosity it sparked and the lack of official comment is what fuels the mystery. I mean, if someone told you your neighbour had a TV that only played ancient history, wouldn't you at least ask for the remote? Now here's the deal. Real or not, the Chronovisor story taps into something deep. The idea that institutions may not just preserve our past, but keep us from seeing the full version. Coming up next, the timekeepers get an upgrade and the CIA gets involved. Operation Mockingbird, MKUltra and the moon landing effect. In the 1950s and 60s, history wasn't just something you read about. It was being written in real time. And sometimes it wasn't by historians, but by intelligence agencies. Let's start with Operation Mockingbird. This was the CIA's alleged effort to influence global media. According to declassified documents and whistleblower accounts, the agency covertly funded journalists, infiltrated newsrooms, and seeded propaganda to shape public opinion. If that sounds like science fiction, consider this. CIA Director William Colby once claimed that the CIA owned everyone of any significance in the major media. Now, pair that with MKUltra, a program that actually was declassified. MKUltra was a sweeping series of experiments designed to explore mind control, memory manipulation, and psychological influence. Test subjects, many unknowingly, were given LSD, subjected to sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and worse. And these weren't just Cold War curiosities, they were attempts to rewrite perception, to bend belief. And during that same era, in 1969, humanity's most televised moment occurred, the moon landing. It was a global event, watched by over 500 million people. But some researchers ask, was it just a scientific triumph, or was it a masterclass in media orchestration? After all, NASA was born from Operation Paperclip scientists, and its PR arm worked closely with major networks. The moon landing unified a nation, but also controlled the narrative of who owns space-time and the future. It wasn't about doubt, it was about how spectacle can shape memory. One giant leap, framed exactly the way they wanted us to remember it. So ask yourself, if you can rewrite someone's memory, are you rewriting their history? And think of the implications. If you can control the story someone hears and the emotions they associate with it, you don't need to erase the past. You can overwrite it live. Now layer that into modern tech. Algorithms, targeted ads, deepfakes, and you start to see the same ghost wearing a new mask. When we think about time manipulation, we often picture machines and glowing portals, but what if it's more subtle than that? What if time control begins with narrative control? In that case, the news you trust, the memories you carry, and even the way you define reality may not be entirely your own. So, the CIA was basically binge-watching Black Mirror before it was cool. And the moon landing? Now, we're not saying it was faked, but you have to admit it was the ultimate PR moment. One small step for man, one giant leap for Cold War optics. It's like history was filmed in real time and directed by Stanley Kubrick's long-lost cousin at Langley. And honestly, if you could choreograph a memory shared by the entire planet, wouldn't you? Anyway, from media manipulation to memory warfare, it's time to crank the weird dial. So, grab your tinfoil hat. Next stop, psychic spies, teleportation experiments, and time as a terrain. Time experiments, Projects Pegasus, Montauk, and Stargate. Now we head into the weird zone, and by weird, we mean government-funded weird. Let's start with Project Pegasus. According to lawyer and whistleblower Andrew Basiago, this was a secret US program in the 1970s that developed teleportation and time travel tech using devices called chrononaut chambers. Basiago claims he personally jumped through portals. Okay, sounds out there, but stick with me. Now throw in Project Montauk, which allegedly operated out of a decommissioned Air Force base in Long Island. Witnesses claim the base conducted mind control, psychic amplification, and time rift experiments. Basically Stranger Things, if Stranger Things was a documentary. And then there's Project Stargate, the real one, run by the US Army and the CIA. Stargate was a classified program that explored remote viewing, the alleged ability to see distant locations using only the mind. Declassified in the 90s, the documents show that the government took psychic espionage seriously enough to fund it for over 2 decades. So, let's ask the question that's been hiding in plain sight. Why so much interest in controlling perception? And why do so many of these experiments circle around time? Some theorists believe these weren't isolated black projects, but fragments of a larger effort to understand time, not as a line, but as a landscape. A place, one you can travel through, manipulate, or maybe even fence off. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, is often tied to these rumors. And while much of what's claimed is speculative, the pattern is clear. Time isn't just a ticking clock. It's a battlefield, and the ones who can move through it, they don't just observe history, they write it. Okay, so time-traveling lawyers, psychic soldiers, and portals under a Long Island sandwich shop. I swear, I didn't make this up after binging on too much Red Bull. Now, Basiago's Mars vacation might stretch the imagination to breaking point, but hey, Stargate was real. Funded, documented, approved. So maybe the truth isn't out there, it's just hiding in the footnotes. And here's the spicy part. All these programs, from Pegasus to Montauk, share the same obsession: bending time and thought. Were they trying to win wars or rewrite the playbook? Either way, if they were messing with timelines, I just hope they didn't erase the one weekend I actually ate healthy. All right, next stop, Nazi time bells and post-war secrets. Let's spin the time back again. The bell and the brain drain. In the final chaotic years of World War II, Nazi Germany was throwing everything at the wall, literally and scientifically. But among the most chilling whispers from this era is something called Die Glocke, the bell. According to post-war accounts and conspiracy lore, Die Glocke was a top-secret Nazi project, a bell-shaped device rumoured to manipulate gravity, distort time, and even bend dimensions. Scientists allegedly died testing it, others vanished. But here's where it gets weirder. After the war, the US launched Operation Paperclip, a real declassified mission to recruit former Nazi scientists. And many of these scientists weren't just building rockets, they had worked on black projects that might have included Die Glocke. One of those scientists? Wernher von Braun, a central figure in NASA's space program. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe brain drain wasn't just about beating the Soviets, maybe it was about controlling time tech. Because here's the pattern again: time, secrecy, and the same players. Now, if Die Glocke was even partially real, and let's be honest, most major tech starts with rumours, then what happened to it? Some claim it was moved to the US, others say it was buried, both literally and historically. But in either case, what if it wasn't a dead-end experiment, but a piece of a much larger puzzle? A puzzle that stretches from Nazi bunkers to NASA labs, a puzzle hidden in plain sight. And let's not forget, war isn't just fought on battlefields, it's fought in history books, in what's remembered and what's erased. So, the Nazis were building a time bell. I mean, I've heard of ringing in the future, but this thing sounded like it could detonate reality instead of chime it. Now, that's not exactly the kind of alarm clock I want in my bunker. And Operation Paperclip, it's the wildest welcome to America ever. Hey, I used to work for Hitler, fancy building some rockets. But here's the serious bit. When you combine secrecy, desperation, and advanced physics, you either get a sci-fi movie or a very real cover-up. Did Die Glocke work? Who knows? But the idea that the US hoovered up those mines just for rockets, that feels a bit too convenient. All right, now let's swap secret tech for sacred symbols. Because next up, the Freemasons, Jesuits, and maybe the Illuminati. Yep, it's that part of the video. Hidden hands, secret societies that shape time. Secret societies, the phrase alone stirs images of cloaked figures, candlelit rituals, and dusty books guarded behind vaults. But beyond the drama lies a question. Could these groups be preserving or rewriting our understanding of time? Let's start with the Freemasons. Known for their symbols, architecture, and obsession with sacred geometry, Freemasons have long been tied to ancient knowledge. Some believe they encode cosmic calendars into city layouts and monuments, like Washington, D.C., or even parts of Paris. Alignments, numbers, proportions, all pointing to a knowledge base that's older than we're told. Then there's the Jesuits, often called the intellectual arm of the Catholic Church. The Jesuits have historically controlled education and historical record keeping. Some fringe theories claim they played a central role in erasing civilizations, especially when you look at post-Council of Trent history. Now, Tartaria theorists, for instance, often point to Jesuit influence as a reason entire timelines vanished. And yes, we have to talk about the Illuminati. And not the pop culture version with triangle eyes and Da Vinci Code vibes, but the esoteric lineage. The idea that a splinter of Enlightenment era thinkers wanted to bring truth to the masses or hide it entirely. Depending on who you ask, they've infiltrated media, academia, and governance, all to steer collective memory. Sound far-fetched? Maybe. But again, pattern. Control the symbols, control the schools, control the story. Maybe these societies aren't rewriting history on parchment, but in the blueprints of buildings, the structure of calendars, and the design of modern memory itself. Because when power hides in plain sight, history doesn't vanish, it gets remodeled. All right, cue the spooky music. We just walked into the secret society section. But hey, We've all known that one guy who's way into Freemason symbolism. Bro, the dollar bill has a pyramid on it. Open your eyes. But when you start looking at architecture, rituals, and the groups who've run education and history for centuries, it's kinda hard not to raise an eyebrow. Maybe it's not about hooded rituals. Maybe it's about patterns, repetition, and who gets to decide what truth is taught. And don't worry, we're not saying your history teacher was a lizard. Well, probably not. Up next, we're cracking open the vaults of bloodlines and mystic orders. Let's talk reincarnation, secrets, and very long family trees. Bloodlines and symbols, guardians of forbidden chronologies. When history disappears, blood remembers, or so the theory goes. Some researchers believe that ancient knowledge about time, reincarnation, and forgotten civilizations wasn't lost, but encrypted, passed down through bloodlines, secret texts, and symbols we've learned not to see. Let's talk about the Rosicrucians. This enigmatic order, often depicted with a rose and a cross, is said to have originated in the 17th century. But some claim their roots go back much further, to ancient Egypt or even Atlantis. They are tied to the idea of cyclical time, reincarnation, and the preservation of wisdom across ages. Not in public books, but through initiates, rituals, and encoded writings. Then there's the Priory of Sion, famous from Holy Grail lore and the Da Vinci Code. Yes, but long rumoured to be more than fiction. They are allegedly protectors of sacred lineage, possibly one tied to Mary Magdalene and Jesus. Myth? Maybe. But the core idea remains. Those in the know have a very different version of history than the rest of us. Some theorists suggest these groups didn't just preserve history, but they guarded alternate timelines, forgotten ages, civilizations that rose and fell before ours even started keeping records. Look at ancient symbols repeated across unrelated cultures, spiritual motifs, suns and serpents. Or the astrological ages embedded in temples and cathedrals. Are these echoes of a deeper timekeeping system, one tied to reincarnation, cosmic cycles, or resets? Maybe it's not about one timeline. Maybe it's about keeping time itself sacred or hidden. And if that knowledge grants influence, it's not hard to see why someone might want to keep it locked away. Because if history tells us who we are, then those who own the past also own the future. All right, so now we're talking secret clubs and sacred bloodlines. Basically, the ultimate VIP lounge. But instead of bottled service, you get reincarnated wisdom and cryptic tattoos. I mean, imagine getting invited to your first Rosicrucian meeting and realizing it's less toga party and more protect the secrets of the universe while deciphering 500-year-old Latin. Now, the Priory of Sion stuff? That's pure Hollywood bait. But still, these stories persist for a reason. We like the idea that someone knows the truth, even if that truth involves intergenerational time passwords and maybe a cup with magical DNA. Next up, we zoom out, way out, to a civilization that some say was erased. Get ready for mudfloods, impossible architecture, and the ultimate reset. The Great Reset Theory. What was buried? Imagine waking up to find an entire civilization has vanished. Not just gone, but erased. Buildings still standing, technology hinted at in art and ruins, but no official record of who built them. Welcome to the Tartaria theory. It's one of the internet's strangest, most viral rabbit holes. The core idea? That a vast, advanced civilization once spanned the globe, possibly up through the 1800s, and was wiped from the books through a coordinated reset. According to believers, architecture is the biggest clue. Massive stone structures, domes, arches, and impossible feats of engineering, all built by cultures supposedly lacking the tech or time. I think orphaned world fairs, hidden infrastructure, or even cities buried in mud, literally mudfloods. Now, most mainstream historians scoff, and yes, Tartaria isn't recognized academically, but the theory isn't just about one lost empire, it's a metaphor, a challenge to ask, what else have we forgotten? Or worse, been made to forget? Now let's bring in Göbekli Tepe, a real-world archaeological site that pushed human history back thousands of years. Built by people we once thought were hunter-gatherers, it's proof that timelines can shift, that the past isn't always what we assumed. So, when we zoom out on all of this, the erasures, the resets, the secret societies and stolen tech, one idea lingers. Maybe history isn't just written by the victors. maybe it's rewritten by timekeepers we've never heard of. And if a civilization like Tartaria did exist, whether metaphor or memory, maybe it was a reset, buried and paved over, so we'd never ask the wrong questions. Because buried beneath layers of soil and silence might be a version of our world we were never meant to see. Yes, Tartaria, the grand finale of internet rabbit holes. It's like Atlantis met a Reddit thread and then took a gap year in St. Petersburg. But seriously, when you look at those massive old buildings with no builder record or cities supposedly sprang up overnight, something doesn't quite add up. Now, do I think there was an empire with free energy and flying trains? Well, maybe not. But the feeling behind it, that someone hit the historical factory reset button, is oddly compelling. And hey, we do know timelines get updated. Göbekli Tepe alone rewrote entire chapters. So, whether Tartaria was real, metaphor or misinterpreted, it's a powerful reminder. History isn't just about what we remember, it's also about what we're told to forget. Closing reflection, who holds the clock? From church councils to classified labs, from whispered bloodlines to buried empires, one thread runs through it all. Control of time means control of truth. If you can rewrite the past, if you can erase, edit or obscure it, you don't just change what people remember, you shape what they believe, what they trust, who they are. The stories we tell about our beginnings, they define our purpose, our values, our vision of what's possible. So, when knowledge is hidden in secret vaults, when timelines are tweaked through propaganda, when forbidden tech disappears into black projects, we have to ask, who benefits? Who gets to decide what's real and what never happened? And maybe the scarier question isn't whether these timekeepers exist, but whether they've already won. Because if whole civilizations can be buried, if psychic spies once mapped the mind, if ancient devices peeked through time and we never heard about it, then perhaps the timeline we're living in isn't the timeline, but one that's been heavily edited, with the director's cut locked away behind layers of secrecy. Maybe history isn't linear, maybe it loops, or resets, or forks. But one thing is clear. The gatekeepers aren't just protecting facts, they're creating reality. And if we want to understand who we really are, we might have to dig beneath more than just dirt. We'll have to question everything. So, what did we learn? And besides the fact that time might be less of a clock and more of a cover-up, and whether you buy into every theory or just enjoy the ride, this journey through rewritten history reminds us that questioning the official version doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you curious. Now, history isn't just a story, it's the story, and maybe, just maybe, we've been reading the abridged version. So, who's really holding the pen? If you've got theories, drop them in the comments. I read them all, even the weird ones, especially the weird ones. And hey, if this timeline glitches out tomorrow, you know who to blame, or maybe who to thank. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one. And let me know in the comments below of videos you'd like to see next. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It's free and really helps out our small channel. Okay friends, until next time, stay curious.